Namaskar and welcome to Samvad at Mayank. The way the Indo-Canadian relations are in a meltdown, and they're changing so fast that at times you feel that it is as if you are watching some series on OTT. The meltdown is so rapid, it is so intense. To discuss
Mm.
this meltdown in Indo-Canadian relations and the ramifications arising out of it, we have with us today Sri Anirudh Bhattacharya, who is the representative of the Hindustan Times in Canada. Welcome to Samvad at Mayank, sir.
Thank you so much, Mayank, for having me on.
Sir, just a couple of days ago, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, while deposing before the parliamentary inquiry on foreign interference, has said that he has admitted that he had provided only intel to India on the Hardeep Nijjar case and not solid evidence which India has been demanding consistently. Yet on this very issue, he has virtually burned down the Indo-Canadian relations. As the Indian government said, and I'll be borrowing from them, why has Trudeau been behaving in such a cavalier manner?
Well, there are some factors behind that. Yes, I mean, the fact that there is basically intelligence which is there to support whatever allegations have been made so far is something that was also stated by Canada's Deputy Minister for Foreign Affairs, David Morrison, basically their foreign secretary a few days back as well. So that is not something which is very new. Now, why is Canada doing this? Let's give Trudeau the benefit of the doubt in the first instance. Maybe there is a real concern about violence against certain members, certain communities in Canada at this point in time. Uh, on the other hand, Trudeau is also facing a lot of political headwinds. So he's been trailing, his party has been trailing consistently by about 20 points in all recent surveys. In fact, surveys over the last 18 months, heading into the next federal elections, which are scheduled for October of next year. But you may very well have midterm polls sometime in March or April. So one of the problems he's facing is that there are ethnic communities that have been deserting him. A recent survey said that 54% of Sikhs and 54% of Hindus are trending towards the opposition Conservative Party. Uh, Perhaps this is also with an eye at gaining those votes back because they're critical. They're critical in any election. They matter in about 24 seats, which is a fair chunk of Trudeau's current position in the House of Commons, which is about 157 seats. So there are both these aspects that we have to take into account. We have to see what actually emerges in terms of tangible evidence. We haven't seen that tangible evidence right now. That, of course, the Canadian authorities are saying will emerge during the court cases after the charges are filed and the trials are in progress. So the problem there for the relationship is that there will be this constant stream of information coming up. This is not going to disappear from the headlines. And the second problem will be what if that stream of information does not actually uh, undergird the allegations that have been made so far? Uh, I mean, see, ultimately, the reality is that relations between India and Canada are not going to improve. There is not going to be any thaw till the current government in Ottawa is in place. That's a reality. Now, if by a political miracle, Trudeau and his Liberal Party do return to power next year, that means for another 4 years, there will be this deep freeze ties. Uh, and one of the things that is going to happen is obviously India is not going to send another high commissioner to Canada till a new government comes in place in Ottawa, and then India will also assess the posture of that government before sending a senior diplomat there. At the same time, Canada was also waiting for the accreditation of its High Commissioner to New Delhi. That process had almost been completed. Now, obviously, India is not going to accept that either. So both capitals will be without High Commissioners for at least a few months.
Sure. So I was listening to this this parliamentary inquiry on foreign affairs. Now, this has become quite, I mean, in India, it's being followed very regularly right now. So we had a statement from Jodie Thomas, who was the NSA during Nijar's murder. So she says that the initial intelligence and the police report was that it was a retaliation from Ripu Daman Malik's killing, who was no saint himself, but then his killing by the Nijar faction. Basically, they had some confrontation going on in the Gurudwara, in the same Gurudwara. But the community was raising concern. So there was further inquiry, and with good intelligence and policing, it was found that it was an extrajudicial killing. So my concern, or my, I would like you to explain on the effect, because this is evidently coming from the Khalistani community more than the Sikh community. So how strong is the hold of the Khalistani community on the Canadian establishment?
Okay, so what Jodie Thomas said, the former NSIA, was something which Trudeau himself actually said while deposing before the Foreign Interference Committee. He said the immediate assessment of Canadian agencies was that this killing was related to gangs. So that is not something which is new, which is what we had also heard at that point in time. Now, of course, any investigation leads in various, there are no avenues which are left unexplored. They can they can always lead in directions that are unexpected and unpredictable. So maybe that is what happened in this particular case. Now, in terms of Khalistani elements in Canada, well, they've always had a very strong presence in Canadian politics, and this has been there for decades. And Gurupatwant Singh Pannun, in fact, the General Counsel of Sikhs for Justice, I mean, he said that he had been writing to the PMO in Ottawa over the last couple of years, stating the concerns over India's High Commissioner in Ottawa, as well as the potential link to the killing of Nijar, who was, one of his closest friends and aides. So yeah, I mean, that is not a surprise to anyone, and that cuts across party lines. Maybe in some parties there is a greater presence of people who are not openly supportive of Khalistan, but may actually be soft on that particular issue. In some parties, that may not be as much of an issue. But yeah, in the Canadian political spectrum, that is definitely there. In fact, not just Canadian politics, it also exists in Canadian media, which describes pro-Khalistan extremists as activists.
So you spoke of Gurupatwant Singh Pannun himself admitting that he's been in communication with the Trudeau office for the past 2-3 years. Now, Pannun has a history. He's regularly issuing assassination threats to Prime Minister Modi, the Indian diplomats. He favors the October 7 Hamas model of attacking India. He's been warning India. What comes out of it is a different issue, but he's been doing it regularly. He was very open with the assassination threats to Sanjay Verma, the High Commissioner. Now, by staying in touch with a person who professes this sort of an ideology, I mean, does Canada not risk turning into a very violent society? Because for Indians, we know Canada as a state which is peaceful. So by professing to be in touch with these people, does it not risk turning into a very violent society, a sort of Pakistan for the West?
Yeah, so first of all, Pannun is a lawyer. He knows how to phrase his threats. Even if the threats are extremely provocative, he can always say, no, that is not what was meant. It was actually meant to be uh, a peaceful means of opposing the government of India. So he faces absolutely no charges in Canada or in the United States where he lives. He has there are no criminal cases against him or civil cases that I'm aware of. So, given those circumstances, I mean, the Trudeau government can't really say prevent someone from writing letters to them. I mean, the interesting thing would be whether the PMO actually responded beyond. There is a form reply which goes out to people who to write to the Prime Minister's office. I mean, that happens in most countries. Whether there were any conversations, which I doubt very much actually happened. So, as I said, Pannun is an agent provocateur. That is what he attempts to do. The apprehension there is that these are dog whistles, which may actually lead to um, some hotheads engaging in violent activity. We are not at that point yet. If we are at that point, I'm sure it's not just the government of India, it's governments elsewhere. It would be the Indo-Canadian community, which would expect the Canadian government to act upon it.
No, but legality is apart. There are sensitivities involved on both sides. Both are democracies in their own ways. But sensitivity, I mean, okay, sir, I understand that he's flying under the radar, so as to say. But then the Sikhs for Justice, they have offered $500,000 for somebody to locate Sanjay Verma. So it's all very good. He's not issuing assassination threats. But $500,000 for locating Sanjay Verma, I mean, sir, what does it come out to be? Obviously, is a threat. It is a sort of a threat. So why
That's
this
what I'm
permissive
saying.
behavior?
They are very well couched in terms of whatever he puts out. As I said, he is a lawyer. He knows how to legally frame what he puts out in his videos and his statements. Uh, the, I mean, can you actually make a case out of what he says? Is the real issue. That is the issue that would be facing uh, law enforcement in Canada. That is an issue which would be facing law enforcement in the US. It would be facing the prosecutors there. Do you make out a case? Is he openly saying assassinate Verma? He is not. I
Mhm.
mean, that is really the point. Of course, the other issue is there are, Trudeau says that he support one India and the territorial integrity of India. I mean, the obvious question there is, if you do that, why are you allowing pro-Khalistan sentiments to flourish in the country? I mean, which is absolutely true. I mean, there's a temple, a Gurdwara in Surrey, which is going to hold an event on the 20th, which is honoring Talvinder Singh Parmar. Now, Talvinder Singh Parmar was not just the head of the Babar Khalsa International, which is a proscribed terrorist entity in Canada. He was also considered the mastermind of the bombing of the Air India flight, the Kanishka, in 1985, which claimed 331 lives. The majority of those lives were those of Canadian citizens. Uh, the problem I see is that Canada is not learning from its history, and and we really don't want to get into a situation where another tragedy strikes the country in terms of terror attack like that. We should not forget it was the worst ever case of aviation terrorism till 9/11 happened.
Mm.
Uh, and we are seeing a repeat of those circumstances now. repeat of the circumstances preceding 1985 in terms of expulsion of Indian diplomats, uh, Canadian politicians defending Khalistan elements, pro-Khalistan elements, and you know their gradual mobilization. So that's something that is of great concern to the larger Indo-Canadian community, which obviously does not want a repeat of that tragedy. I mean, there is a great deal of apprehension. I won't say there is fear, but there is, right at this point in time, a great deal of apprehension about what could come next.
Sir, talking of the Kanishka tragedy, 268 Canadians killed. Now, Trudeau is basically, he is feeling for the assassination of Hardeep Nature. 268 Canadians killed, and the inquiry was totally botched up, total mess. Nobody ever got convicted. So, can Trudeau not reopen the Kanishka case as and then take it to its logical conclusion? Wouldn't that be a tribute to the Canadians?
Yeah, actually, just to there was actually one person who was convicted, Inderjeet Singh Rayat, who was the bomb maker. He was convicted during the trial, but you're generally right that the the principal accused were actually not convicted. That was because the intelligence which was gathered by the CSIS and the investigation which was carried out by the RCMP was really lacking, and that came out very clearly during the trial, and that was also mentioned during an inquiry which was undertaken by retired Supreme Court Judge John Major, who actually said there was a cascading series of mistakes which led to the terrorist attack. The problem right now is with the situation kind of repeating itself is that, Indo-Canadians seem to be getting the sense that maybe brown lives don't matter. You may have these many people who were killed, and maybe the consideration there is that, it's some sort of foreign conflict, it doesn't impact us. So, it's really not that significant a problem. That is problematic. Now, in terms of another investigation, I personally think that's not a very good idea, because first of all, the RCMP investigation has never really been closed. It is continuing. It is continuing to look into the bombing. At the same time, this happened nearly 40 years back. What new forensic evidence are you going to gather? Most of the people are either dead or they're aged. And given the current circumstances in Canada, people who know something which would help implicate Khalistanis would be far too intimidated and far too fearful to come forward and testify. So it could actually have a negative effect. Opening a new investigation, because that would be used by the pro-Khalistani elements to further their conspiracy theory that this was also a false flag attack by India.
So one last question. The Indian community in Canada is around, I believe, 2 million people, Indo-Canadians. What is the mood amongst the Indo-Canadians after all this, after this meltdown in the relationship for the past 1 year? It's been precipitated. It was not very good earlier also, but it's going downhill for the past 1 year. So what is the mood amongst the Indo-Canadian community out there?
There is, as I said earlier, a lot of apprehension. There is also a lot of anger, because obviously a lot of Indo-Canadians do want to maintain their ties, want to see furtherance of normal ties with India, which obviously is which is gone, which is more or less dead for the time being. There is also concern about safety, whether if pro-Khalistan elements are emboldened by what has happened over the last few days, what has happened over the last 1 year, uh, how safe will they be? And this is the larger Indo-Canadian community, and I'll come to the Hindu community. Their temples have been targeted over the last 2 years. Over nearly 2 dozen incidents have happened. There has been not a word on it from Prime Minister Trudeau. So they feel abandoned by him. There is the concern that they may be targeted because, as you know, Khalistani elements have said, you know, Indian origin Hindus leave Canada.
So Pannun talked
So
of
they have
weeding out Indo-Canadians. He spoke of weeding out the Indo-Canadians.
Hindus, very
Indo-Canadians. He
specifically
used the word Indo-Canadians.
Hindu Hindu Canadians,
Yes,
very
sir.
specifically.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Indo-Canadians. So
yeah.
he
So
spoke
that
of weeding out the Indo-Canadians, asking them to leave.
yeah, so that is, as I said, that is something which is a great issue of great concern. Now, the other concern is if this current matter, if it escalates, you would have seen these reports in Western media that maybe a senior Indian cabinet minister, senior officials were also involved in this process leading up to Niger's killing and also what happened after that over the last 1 year. Then India could well retaliate by again stopping visas for a longer period this time and not relax them like they did after a couple of months. Uh, so, there are multiple things that India could do, uh, and that would be really problematic for the community there simply because, a lot of them do maintain ties to India. They like to visit the country, visit their relatives who are, in India. And so, there are layers of concerns there. And the point is, what happens next is extremely unpredictable. We don't really know where this relationship is going to go. My own sense is it's probably going to get much worse before it gets better. And that will be a cause for apprehension in the months ahead.
So we can only hope and wait and pray that things start turning for the better. I mean, that is all we can do. But thank you so much for sparing time for us, sir. And we'll keep coming back to you for your perspective on the Indo-Canadian and more such issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you.